The stars were quiet. For a long time, nothing strange had happened in Sector 9X. It was known as the Dead Zone. No planets with life, no signals, just cold space and broken rocks. The Galactic Council had marked it forbidden years ago. No one dared go near it. But then, something changed. A signal came, a repeating SOS, an emergency call. It echoed through space in short, sharp bursts. It was old, shaky, and full of static. Most ships ignored it. But someone noticed something strange. The message was in English. Only one species ever used English: the humans from Earth. But Earth had cut itself off from the galaxy years ago. The Deathworlders didn't talk much, they didn't share, and they never asked for help. If they were sending a message, something had gone very, very wrong. But this signal didn't come from Earth. It came from the Dead Zone. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. "This cannot be real," said Chancellor Vurok of the Celeran Empire. "No one lives in Sector 9X. It was destroyed in the last war." "It's a trap," hissed Commander Silak of the Trinari. "Maybe pirates, or worse, the scavengers. But the language, it's human," said a young diplomat. "What if it's a lost ship? A survivor?" The council members looked at each other, nervous. Everyone remembered what happened the last time humans went silent. When the Deathworlders act, they act without warning. So they decided, let the humans deal with it. The message was sent to Earth, and Earth responded, with silence. For 2 days, the galaxy heard nothing. No answer from the humans. No warning. No message. Then, on the 3rd day, their ships moved. Captain Riker stood on the bridge of the lead ship Iron Will. His face was cold, his eyes sharp. He stared at the hologram showing the signal's origin. "Prep the fleet," he ordered. "Sir," his second officer asked quietly. "Why are we going? We haven't had contact with that system in over 20 years. It's not even marked on new maps." Riker didn't blink. "That's exactly why we're going." The officer paused. "Is this connected to Project Echo?" Riker turned slowly. "You've read the old files?" "Only pieces. They were mostly deleted." Riker nodded. "Good, keep it that way." No one asked more questions. As the Deathworlder fleet moved, eyes across the galaxy watched. Dozens of black armored ships passed through jump points in complete silence. No lights, no beacons, no open comms, only purpose. One alien ambassador whispered in fear, "Why would they answer an SOS from that place?" Another replied, "Because humans don't forget." And another added, "Because maybe they caused it." Inside the fleet, soldiers checked their gear. Heavy armor, energy rifles, drones, scanners. Everyone trained in silence. No jokes, no small talk. Only the sound of boots and machines. Each person had read the same message. SOS, human ID code. Echo 1, location 9x9, status critical, repeat. Echo 1 was a name long erased from Earth's public records. A mission that never returned. No bodies, no answers, only silence. Until now. As they neared the system, the stars seemed colder. The planets looked broken, chunks of rock floating in space. One moon was cracked in half. A strange mist surrounded it. Scanners couldn't read through the fog. The signal came from inside that moon. "Scan for life," Riker said. "Nothing clear, sir. But there is something. Movement. Power sources. Not natural. Send the drones. I want eyes down there." The drones shot forward, passing through the mist. Their cameras showed ruins. Metal buildings half buried in dust. Old Earth tech. Torn flags. And then, one door, still locked, still powered. And then they saw it. A small blinking light above the door. Status: containment failed. Riker stared at it, unmoving. "Sir?" the officer asked again. Riker answered in a low voice. "Send the team in, full armor, weapons, hot. But we don't know what's inside. That's the point." Back on the council world, the alien leaders watched the human fleet disappear into the misty moon. "They didn't ask for help," said one. "They never do," replied Another. And then they all went quiet. Because everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. When Deathworlders move, something dangerous is out there. But this time, the real fear was not what they were going to fight. It was why they were going at all. What could make even humans afraid? And why did they wait 20 years to answer? The stars held their breath. And the signal kept repeating. SOS, SOS, Echo 1, critical. The Deathworlder fleet moved through space like a shadow, silent, fast, and focused. 30 human warships entered the dead zone. No warnings, no transmissions. The galaxy watched from a distance, afraid to follow. Inside the flagship Iron Will, Captain Riker stared at the screen. The strange, cracked moon was ahead. The SOS signal still blinked, still repeating, but Riker wasn't listening to the message. He already knew what it said. He had heard it before, 20 years ago. Second Officer Lance stood near the command table reading old mission logs. His hands shook slightly. The file was short. Most of it was missing, but one part stayed. Project Echo, top secret research. Location, Sector 9X. Orders, full silence. No return without clearance, Lance whispered. We sent people there, and no one ever came back. Riker didn't turn around. He simply said, not people, volunteers. Lance blinked. Sir? They weren't supposed to come back. Silence filled the room. The soldiers on board the fleet didn't know everything, but they felt something was wrong. These weren't normal orders. There was no speech, no mission briefing, only one message on every screen. Prepare. No mistakes. Private. Jenna, one of the newer Marines, asked her squad leader, why are we even answering this old signal? Isn't it just static? The sergeant looked at her and replied, if the captain says move, we move. But this place, it feels cursed. He nodded. Because it is. Back on Earth, deep underground, an old man sat alone. He wore a black coat with the Earth defense symbol on the sleeve. His eyes were tired. He watched the fleet on a screen. A quiet voice came from a young officer behind him. Sir, the fleet just entered moon orbit. Do we tell the council what they're doing? The old man shook his head slowly. No, the council doesn't need to know. They made us erase Project Echo. They thought it was over, but now... He looked at the signal. They're going to learn what fear really is. Inside the moon, scanners picked up something strange. Sir, Lance said, the surface looks dead, but there's heat and power coming from underground. Riker stared at the screen. That facility was built to survive a planet-breaking event. It should still be intact. How do you know that? Lance asked. Riker looked him in the eye. Because I helped design it. Lance froze. You were part of Project Echo? Riker didn't answer. He simply gave the next order. Drop a squad. Let's see if anything answers. 12 soldiers landed on the moon's surface. The ground was cracked and dry. Broken equipment was scattered everywhere. Old Earth tech, long rusted. But one door stood untouched. A thick steel door with a blinking light. Sergeant Dax walked up slowly. His boots crunched over dust and old bones. Door's locked, he said. Still has power. Override it, came Riker's voice from orbit. Dax plugged in his tool. The door made a loud clang and slowly opened. The hallway inside was dark and warm, too warm. The squad moved in, lights shining. Inside were strange markings on the walls, deep claw scratches, burn marks, blood long dried. Then the door shut behind them. Sir, we're inside, Dax reported. This place is you wrong, like something's been living here. He paused. Smells like something alive. Riker answered, stay alert. This is what we came for. Suddenly, a sound came through the comms. A soft, broken voice. Hello? Is someone there? The soldiers froze. Who said that? Dax asked. The voice came again. Please. Don't leave me here. It was a child's voice. Human. Back on the bridge of Iron Will, Lance looked at Riker. A child. After all, these years, Riker's jaw tightened. There were families there. Scientists brought their kids. But how could anyone survive that long? Riker looked down at the blinking signal. They weren't alone. As the soldiers moved deeper into the base, they found a cryo chamber. Still, active. Inside was a small boy about 10 years old. Pale, eyes closed, breathing slow. Dax whispered, "This is impossible." Then the boy's eyes opened. He looked at them and smiled. "You came back," he said. "Who are you?" Dax asked, but the boy didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the hallway behind them and whispered, "They're still here. In orbit." Alarms blared. "Movement detected," shouted the scanner officer. "Below the surface, multiple heat sources, fast." Riker stood straight. "It's awake," he said. "Just like I feared." Lance looked at him. "What is?" Riker answered coldly. "Project Echo's mistake." In the shadows of the broken moon, something moved. It was not machine, not human, and not something nature had ever made. It had been created, and now it remembered the ones who left it behind. It remembered Earth, and it was hungry. The inside of the moon was not empty. It was alive. Not with plants, not with animals, but with something else. Something built in darkness. Something humans once tried to forget. Captain Riker stood on the bridge of the Iron Will, staring at the heat readings. "Over 100 signals," said Officer Lance, "all moving. Fast." "Towards our team?" Riker asked. Lance nodded. "Yes, sir." Riker gave the order without blinking. "Seal the surface doors. Lock them in." Lance looked confused. "Sir, our soldiers are still inside." Riker's voice turned, hard. They knew the risk. If those things reach the surface, it's over. Inside the underground base, Sergeant Dax and his team heard the heavy doors slam shut behind them. "Sir, command just sealed the entrance," a soldier yelled. Dax tried to radio back. "Command, this is ground team. We have a survivor, a child. Do not lock us in." No answer, just static. The boy looked up at Dax and said, "They always close the doors, but they never stop it." "What's it, kid?" Dax asked, raising his rifle. The boy just stared down the dark hallway. Then came the sound, clicking, fast, wet, inhuman. One of the soldiers aimed his gun down the hall. "Movement!" Lights flickered, shadows moved. Then the lights died. Darkness. Back in orbit, Riker watched the moon's surface closely. "Sir," said Lance, "we should help them. At least get the child out." Riker's face didn't change. "That's not a child. Not anymore." Lance stepped back. "You think it's infected?" Riker spoke slowly. "There were no survivors in Project Echo, only subjects. The boy you saw is part of the experiment." Lance's voice cracked. "What experiment?" Riker finally answered. "One to create the perfect soldier." Inside the base, the soldiers used night vision goggles. Everything looked green and ghostly. They could see shapes moving fast, crawling on walls and ceilings. Dax shouted, "Form a circle, defend the boy." But the boy just stood still. His eyes glowed slightly in the dark. "They're awake now," he said softly. "They've been waiting. For you." Then came the attack. One creature lunged from the ceiling, claws tearing through armor. A soldier screamed. Another was pulled into the shadows. The team fired their weapons, lighting up the dark with flashes of blue energy. But for each creature, they hit, more kept coming. Back in the fleet, alarms kept ringing. "Weapons ready?" Riker asked. "Ready, sir." "But are we firing on our own men?" Riker's eyes were cold. "They're already dead." The command room went silent. Then Riker added, "If even one of those things escapes the moon, the galaxy dies with it." Lance swallowed hard. "Sir, what are they?" Riker walked to the window. They were human once, or almost human. Project Echo was built to test how far evolution could go under pressure. "Pressure?" Lance asked. Riker nodded. "Pain, fear, hunger, darkness. He turned. We didn't create soldiers. We created monsters. Inside the moon, Dax's team fought back hard. But the creatures were smart. They used the walls, the air vents. They moved with purpose, like they remembered. We're getting overrun, someone shouted. Dax fired round after round. The boy walked calmly through the battle untouched. You can't stop them, he whispered. They live in the dark. They are the dark. A creature jumped straight at Dax, but before it reached him, the boy raised a hand. The creature stopped. It froze in midair and slowly backed away. Everyone went quiet. What did you do? Dax asked. The boy smiled. I asked it not to hurt you. On the iron will, Riker saw the power surge. Something's changing, said Lance. The power inside the base just spiked. Something is waking up. Riker narrowed his eyes. The core. Lance blinked. What core? The heart of the base, Riker said, where we kept the first subject. The original. You mean? Riker nodded. The one who taught the rest how to survive. Deep underground, the hallway shook. Walls cracked. Lights exploded. The boy turned and looked toward the deepest part of the base. She's awake now, he said. Dax asked. Who is she? The boy looked at him calmly. My mother. Then the floor opened beneath them and they fell into the dark. Back in orbit, a strange signal reached the fleet. Not the old SOS. Something new. A voice. Female. Calm. Cold. Not human. Earth. I remember you. You left us in the dark. Now can we return? Riker turned to his crew. Sound red alert. Ready all weapons. Lance looked at him. Sir, what if this is just the beginning? Riker's answer was quiet. It is. The underground base shook like it was alive. Dust fell from the ceiling. Walls cracked. Pipes burst. Alarms screamed in broken voices. Sergeant Dax groaned as he stood up. His team lay scattered around him. Some were hurt. One didn't move at all. They had fallen through the floor deep into the lowest part of the moon base. Everything was dark. Except for one thing. The boy. He stood without a scratch, staring at a huge metal door covered in warning signs. Dax pointed. At the door. What's behind that? The boy didn't blink. My mother. Up in orbit, Captain Riker watched the surface of the moon crack open. Strange red light spilled out. Like blood from a wound. Officer Lance looked scared. Sir, if that's the core waking up, what happens next? Riker's voice was quiet. We lose the moon. Lance gasped. You mean it'll explode? No, Riker said. I mean we lose control. Once she's fully awake, nothing can stop her. Lance swallowed. So, she's not just a creature? Riker shook his head. She's a weapon. Deep underground, the boy turned to Dax. You still don't understand. My mother isn't just one of them. He pointed to the walls. She created them. Dax looked around. The walls had marks, strange writing, symbols. Some looked human, others didn't. What is this place? He asked. The boy smiled sadly. A lab, a prison, a home. You called it Project Echo. But she called it something else. He paused. The nursery. The door opened with a deep hiss. Inside was a massive chamber filled with strange machines, and at the center, floating in a glass tank, was a woman, or what looked like one. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Long black hair floated around her. Wires connected her to the tank like veins. She looked asleep, but her eyes were open and glowing red. She's been awake for years, the boy said. Just waiting. Dax raised his gun. Waiting for what? For the ones who left her behind. Suddenly, the woman's voice echoed through the room, not from her mouth, but from everywhere. You came back. But you are not the same. You wear Earth's armor, but you carry fear. Dax stepped back. What are you? The voice laughed, cold and soft. I am what Earth made when they pushed too far. I am the result of your hunger for control. Now, I will show you what that control costs. Above the moon, the iron will picked up the transmission. She's talking to us, Lance said, shocked. Directly into our systems. She's learning fast, Riker said. Sir, what do we do? Riker's voice was sharp. Target the core. Fire on my command. But the team is still inside. They're already gone. The chamber below filled with light. The woman broke free of the tank. The wires snapped like strings. She floated down to the floor. Her feet never touched the ground. Dax stared in horror. She looked human, but her eyes were not. She raised one hand. The machines behind her turned on. The lights grew red, and the creatures returned. They crawled down walls out of vents from every direction, dozens of them, then hundreds. Dax yelled to his team, "Fall back, move." But the boy stayed behind. She is mother to them. She gave them life. She gave me life, too. Dax grabbed him. You'll die here. The boy looked him in the eyes. She doesn't want me to die. He turned and raised his own hand, and the creatures stopped. On the iron will, red warning lights flashed. Heat spike in the core, shouted an officer. Something is building. Up fast! Riker's jaw tightened. She's powering the moon, turning it into a weapon. Lance stared. A weapon? Against who? Riker's answer was one word. Us. In the underground base, the woman raised both hands. Machines rose from the floor. Cannons, shields. A defense system built long ago by human hands, but now under her control. She had taken Earth's technology and made it her own. Dax and his team were trapped. Then the boy turned to her and shouted, "Mother, stop!" Her glowing eyes shifted. "You are not ready," she said. The boy stepped forward. "Then teach me." The creatures moved away from the humans. The red lights dimmed. Now back in space, Riker saw the energy drop. She stopped, Lance whispered. Riker shook his head. She paused. Not for us. For him. Lance looked confused. The boy? Yes, Riker said. She sees him as her next step. Her future. Lance asked, "What do we do now?" Riker stared out the window. We watch. We wait. And we pray. She doesn't choose war. But in the back of his mind, Riker knew this was only the beginning. The underground base was quiet now, but that silence was not peace. It was the calm before a storm. Sergeant Dax looked at the boy, whose eyes still glowed faintly red in the dim light. The creatures were gone, for now, but the tension in the air was thick. "Who exactly are you?" Dax asked quietly. The boy smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "I am called Eli," he said. "I was born here, in the darkness. My mother made me." Dax swallowed hard. "You're not just a survivor. You're part of their story." Eli nodded. "I am the last hope, or the last weapon." Back on the iron will, Captain Riker paced his bridge. The red warning lights had turned off, but his mind was far from calm. Officer Lance came to him. "Sir, we have reports from long-range sensors. The moon's core is stabilizing, but there is unusual activity in the outer sectors." Riker nodded slowly. "They are waking up." Lance's voice dropped. "The other subjects, the ones created before the core, they're stirring." Riker stared out into the blackness of space. "We were fools to think we could control evolution." Deep inside the base, Eli led Dax and the remaining soldiers through narrow corridors. The walls were covered with strange symbols. Some looked like warnings, others like prayers. Eli touched one symbol gently. "This was my mother's message. She wanted us to survive." Dax looked at the symbols closer. "Survive what?" Eli shook his head. "Survive what we created." Suddenly the ground trembled again. The walls shook violently. A deep rumble echoed through the tunnels. "It's starting," Eli said. "Starting what?" Dax asked. Eli's eyes turned bright red. "The awakening." Meanwhile, in the command room of the Iron Will, the crew watched strange readings on their screens. "Sir, energy signatures are coming from the moon's surface." Lance pointed. "They're building something." Riker's voice was calm but firm. Prepare the fleet. If those weapons fire, we can't let them hit us. Lance swallowed hard. But sir, what if they are trying to send a message? What if Eli wants peace? Riker's eyes narrowed. Hope is a luxury we can't afford. Back in the tunnels, Dax and his team came to a large room. Inside, massive machines hummed with power. Pipes hissed steam. Lights flickered on old consoles. Eli walked toward a control panel. This is the heart of the base, he said. The place where my mother kept the power. Dax stared at the panels. How long has this been running? Since the war started, Eli answered. It kept her alive. It gave her control. Dax's voice dropped. And now? Eli looked away. She is growing stronger. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed everywhere. A booming voice echoed through the corridors. Intruders detected. Security protocols activated. Dax raised his gun. Prepare for combat. They know we are here. The creatures poured from vents and tunnels. Not like before. This time they were faster, stronger, smarter. One attacked Dax, claws flashing. He barely dodged. Gunfire erupted, lighting the dark tunnels with blue flashes. Eli moved with them, but he didn't fight, he whispered. I am not their enemy. Yet. Above the moon, Captain Riker's face was grim. Enemy forces mobilizing on the surface, he said. Prepare for full attack. We can't lose this moon. Lance asked. Sir, what if we lose it anyway? Riker looked at the stars. Then Earth is next. Back underground, the battle raged. Dax fought hard. Soldiers fell one by one. The creatures were relentless. Suddenly, the ground shook. The whole base trembled. Eli shouted, The core is awakening fully. Machines around them began to hum louder, faster. The walls cracked, a blinding light filled the room. Dax covered his eyes. When the light faded, the woman, the core, stood before them. Her eyes burned red with power. She smiled coldly. You have returned, she said. Now you will see the price of your sins. On the iron will, Lance watched the signals spike. They're powering up a weapon, he said. Riker nodded. The weapon Earth built, and forgot. The fleet prepared their guns, but Riker paused. If we fire now, we might destroy the moon, and everything in it. Lance looked at him, surprised. We can't wait, Riker said. But we must be ready for what comes next. Back in the base, the core raised her hand. Energy crackled. The room shook violently. The creatures howled and charged forward. Dax fired rapidly. Eli stepped between the soldiers and the core. Mother, stop, he shouted. She looked at him with cold eyes. You were born in darkness, she said. Now you will embrace it. Eli's eyes flared bright. He stepped toward her, and the ground cracked open beneath them. Outside, the moon began to tremble violently. Cracks spread across its surface. Explosions rocked the tunnels. The Deathworlders looked on in horror. Riker whispered, We awakened a monster, Lance added, and a child born in darkness. The fleet readied for what might come next, because the fight for the moon and Earth's future was just beginning. The moon's surface cracked and trembled, sending waves of dust and debris into the cold black sky. The iron will hovered silently above, its crew watching the chaos below in tense silence. Captain Riker stood at the command window, eyes sharp and cold. We can't let this spread, he said. Officer Lance looked nervous. Sir, the core's power is growing fast. If she breaks free, the whole sector will be lost. Riker nodded. We prepare for war. Deep underground, the battle still raged. Sergeant Dax fired his weapon furiously, dodging claws and teeth. Around him, the creatures swarmed like a tide of darkness. But Dax's mind was elsewhere. He kept glancing at Eli, the boy with glowing eyes, who moved like a ghost through the battlefield. Eli was different. He didn't fight like the others. He seemed to control them like a commander of shadows. Dax shouted, Eli, what are you doing? Eli turned, voice low but steady. I'm trying to stop the fight. Dax frowned. Stop? How? Eli raised his hand, and the creatures suddenly froze in place. Then, slowly, they backed away. The soldiers lowered their weapons, confused. Eli said, "They listen to me because I am part of this darkness. But I don't want war." Above, Captain, Riker called a meeting. The Iron Will's command crew gathered. "We have two choices," Riker said. "Attack now and risk destroying the moon, and the core, or negotiate with Eli. The boy may be our only chance to stop this." Officer Lance frowned. "Negotiate? With a child who controls monsters?" Riker's eyes hardened. "Sometimes the deadliest warriors are the ones who want peace." The room fell silent. Back in the tunnels, the core's voice echoed again. "You cannot stop what has begun. The darkness is life. The light will die." Dax gritted his teeth. "Eli, you have to fight her." Eli's eyes glowed brighter. "She is my mother. But I am not her puppet." He stepped toward the glowing core. "We will change this story." The core laughed. "Foolish child." Suddenly the ground shook harder. A new enemy arrived. The moon's defense systems activated. Cannons emerged from the walls, firing powerful blasts of energy. The creatures scattered, dodging the fire. The soldiers used the chaos to move forward. Dax yelled, "Push! We must reach the core's chamber." Eli led the way, his glowing eyes lighting the dark path. Up in space, the Deathworlders launched their fighters. The moon's automated turrets fired back, lighting the night with deadly beams. Riker watched the battle unfold. "Send reinforcements," he ordered. "We must hold the moon." Lance checked the tactical screens. "Sir, sensors detect strange energy spikes near the moon's core. Something is growing." Riker's jaw clenched. "That's Eli." Deep underground, Eli faced his mother, the core's. Eyes blazed like suns. Her power was overwhelming, but Eli stood firm. "I was born in darkness," he said, "but I choose light." The core sneered. "You are weak." Eli raised his hand. Energy burst forth, blue and bright. It clashed with the core's red power in a brilliant explosion. The ground shook. The walls cracked. Outside, the moon trembled violently. Explosions rocked the tunnels. The soldiers fought fiercely, but the creatures kept coming. Dax fired his weapon, shouting orders. "We hold here. No retreat." Back on the Iron Will, Lance looked at Riker. "If Eli win, what happens next?" Riker's eyes were distant. "Then we may have a chance." Lance swallowed. "But if he loses?" Riker's voice was cold. "Then the darkness will swallow us all." In the depths of the moon, Eli and the core's battle continued. Energy clashed, filling the chamber with blinding light. Eli's power grew stronger, but the core's rage was endless. She screamed, "You cannot stop what I am." Eli smiled sadly. "I don't want to stop you, I want to change you." With one final burst of light, Eli pushed the core back. She stumbled, her power fading. The creatures stopped. The moon grew silent. The Iron Will's crew held their breath. The energy spikes slowed. The red light dimmed. Then the core's voice echoed one last time. "This is not the end. The darkness will return. And so will I." Silence followed. Riker turned to Lance. "Prepare the fleet for departure. We are not safe here." Lance nodded. "But what about Eli?" Riker sighed. "He is our new hope and our greatest risk." Deep underground, Eli looked at the soldiers. His eyes were tired but full of light. "We survived," he said softly. "But this war is not over." Dax nodded. "We fight together." Eli smiled. "In the darkness, we will find the light." The stars above the shattered moon glimmered cold and distant. Captain Riker stood on the bridge of the Iron Will, his face a mask of hard decisions. The battle underground was over, for now, but the cost was clear. The core was weakened, but not destroyed. Eli, the boy born in darkness, had saved the base, yet questions filled the silent room. "What do we do now?" Officer Lance asked, voice low. Riker's eyes didn't leave the dark space beyond. We came here to destroy a threat. But what if the threat is more than just a weapon? The Deathworlders were a brutal race. They thrived in war, built their strength on battle and survival. But Eli, human, young, and strange, had changed everything. Riker's orders were simple. Capture Eli alive, destroy the core, secure the moon. Yet the captain felt doubt. Is Eli an enemy, or a new kind of ally? Deep in the tunnels, Dax stood beside Eli. The boy looked tired but determined. I want to stop the fighting, Eli said softly. But if my mother returns, we will face war again. Dax nodded. We need to be ready. Suddenly, the walls trembled again. The core's warning echoed through the base. You cannot hide from me forever. I will rise again. Eli clenched his fists. Then I will be here to stop her. Dax looked at the soldiers, readying their weapons. We hold this place, no matter what. On the iron will, Riker gathered. His officers. We have a choice. Lance looked surprised. What choice? Riker's voice was cold and steady. We can destroy the moon to end the threat. Or we can protect Eli and hope he can control the core. The room fell silent. Outside the moon, the fleet waited. The tension was thick. No one moved. The silence screamed louder than guns. Riker stared at the base below. Send a message, he ordered. Back underground, Eli stood before a giant map. It showed the galaxy, the stars, the planets, the danger zones. I want to protect more than this moon, Eli said. This darkness could spread, Dax asked. How? Eli looked at him. By showing them who we can be. Suddenly alarms blared again. The core's power was returning. Red light filled the tunnels. The creatures stirred once more. Dax yelled, Prepare to fight. But Eli raised his hand. Wait. He closed his eyes and spoke softly. The creatures paused, then slowly they backed away. On the iron will, Lance turned to Riker. Maybe Eli is right. Riker's gaze was sharp. Or maybe he's only buying time. Lance said quietly. We don't have many options left. In the base, Eli walked through the halls. He touched the walls, the symbols, the machines. This place was built to control. Power, he said. But power is not control. Dax watched silently. Suddenly a burst of energy shook the moon. The core's voice filled the air. You cannot run. You will belong to me. Eli stood firm. We belong to ourselves. The ground cracked beneath them. The final battle was near. Back on the iron will, Riker made his decision. We stay. We protect Eli. Lance nodded slowly. The war is far from over. Deep underground, Eli looked at his team. We must be ready. Dax smiled grimly. For the first time, I believe in hope. Above, the stars watched silently. The Deathworlders had chosen their path. The fight for the moon, for Earth, and for the future was only beginning. The moon trembled beneath the heavy silence of space. Captain Riker stood on the bridge of the iron, will, his jaw tight with tension. The fleet was ready, the soldiers were prepared, and Eli, the boy born in darkness, was ready to face his destiny. This is it, Riker said quietly. The final battle. Deep underground, the base was alive with energy. Eli stood at the center of the chamber, his eyes glowing bright blue now. The core's power was rising fast. She was no longer just a shadow in the darkness. She was real, dangerous, ready to destroy everything. Sergeant Dax loaded his weapon, watching Eli carefully. We fight together, Dax said. Eli nodded. I will not fail. The core's voice echoed through the tunnels like thunder. You cannot stop me, Eli. This darkness is eternal. Eli's voice was calm but firm. I choose the light. With a sudden burst, energy exploded between them. The room shook violently. Above ground, the iron will and its fleet faced the moon's defense systems. Cannons fired energy blasts that lit the dark like fireworks. Fighters flew in tight formations, dodging and weaving through enemy fire. Captain Riker barked orders. Hold the line. Protect the base. We cannot lose this fight. Inside the base, the battle raged. Creatures attacked from all sides. Dax and the soldiers fought fiercely, but the creatures were endless. Eli moved with purpose, channeling his power. With every step, his light pushed back the darkness. The core screamed, a terrible sound that shook the walls. She sent waves of dark energy crashing at Eli. He blocked them with his own bright force. The clash of powers filled the chamber with blinding light. Back on the iron will, Lance watched the readings. With wide eyes, the energy spikes are off the charts. Riker didn't answer. He only stared at the battle below. We must trust Eli, he said softly. In the tunnels, Eli's power grew stronger, but the core was relentless. She whispered, "You are mine. You cannot escape me." Eli smiled sadly. I'm not yours." He raised his hand, sending a wave of blue light. The core screamed in pain. Her dark form began to crack. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Explosions rocked the tunnels. The creatures faltered. Dax shouted, "Now! Push forward." The soldiers surged ahead. Above ground, the Iron Will's fleet fired their biggest weapons. Energy beams tore through the moon's defenses. The moon's surface cracked and broke apart. The core's power was breaking too. In the chamber, Eli took a deep breath. He reached out his hand. The core's dark form shattered like glass. A bright light filled the room. The darkness was gone. Silence followed. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Eli looked around, exhausted but victorious. Dax smiled. "You did it, Eli." Eli nodded. "This is just the beginning." Back on the Iron Will, Captain Riker spoke to his crew. "We fought a darkness we did not understand, but together we won." Lance smiled. Maybe there is hope for the galaxy after all. Outside, the stars shone bright. The moon was broken, but alive. Eli looked out the window. He knew the fight for peace was far from over, but for now the darkness was defeated, and the light was shining strong.